What if you suddenly lost everything and had no one by your side? The kind of loss that doesn't just hit your bank account but your identity, your sense of self, everything you thought you were building, gone in a flash. For Dr. Emily Carson, that flash was literal. A fireball tore through Lab 6A at the Massachusetts Institute of Technology, the walls of her research career reduced to scorched drywall and molten prototypes. Sirens echoed down the halls as sprinklers hissed futilely against the blaze. She stumbled out into the cold Boston night, her safety goggles askew, her heart racing, and her future in tatters. A red light pulsed across the sky as fire crews swarmed around her, shouting orders she couldn't register. Somewhere in the chaos, someone handed her a silver blanket and said something about inhalation, but Emily was already watching years of her work curl up into smoke and vanish into the wind. The next morning, the headlines were brutal. Experimental Lab Blaze Destroys Cutting-Edge Materials Program. Her name was there, attached like a curse. Funding pulled, research suspended, and when the insurance company decided it was her negligence, a glitch in the heat compressor controls she had modified on her own time, the university had no choice but to sever ties. Overnight, she became a cautionary tale. And so, at 32, with 2 degrees, a PhD, and 5 years of pioneering sustainable materials research behind her, she packed what little she had into a rented Jeep and drove north to the one place she swore she'd never return, her childhood home in rural Vermont. A crooked wooden sign still hung by the driveway, Carson Tree Farm, EST 1957. The irony wasn't lost on her. She had spent her life chasing synthetic perfection, carbon nanotubes, graphene composites, metal alloys engineered atom by atom, and now she was back where it all began, surrounded by thousands of trees. The house was quiet when she arrived. Her father wasn't home. Not surprising. The man preferred the woods to people, a trait she inherited and then rejected in equal measure. Inside, the air smelled like cedar and stale coffee. Her mother's favorite mug still sat on the counter, chipped and discolored, 5 years untouched since cancer took her without ceremony. Emily dropped her duffel on the worn couch and slumped beside it. That night, she stared at the cracked ceiling and thought about how quickly life could collapse. The silence was thick. That kind of silence where even your thoughts feel too loud. She scrolled through her phone, past old photos of the lab, of Ben, of university galas where she once believed she was changing the world. The world, it seemed, wasn't interested. Hit subscribe and leave a comment with where you're watching from. This story might just spark a new beginning. What's one thing that always pushes you forward, even when things get tough? It was a YouTube channel she used to follow, a science communicator named Lila who made materials engineering sound like magic. Emily almost scrolled past but didn't. The comment box blinked. She typed, "Failure. That's what pushes me. Because what's the alternative?" She hit send, then powered off her phone and let the darkness take her. Morning came with a cold wind and the smell of pine. She walked out to the old storage shed, the one her father had always kept locked. Inside, everything was covered in dust, old saws, milling tools, and samples of wood sealed in labeled glass jars. One was marked, Test Batch, LRC 1997. LRC, Lillian Rachel Carson, her mother. Emily held the jar up to the light. The wood inside looked ordinary. But something about it felt heavier. Denser. She pulled out a handheld spectrometer from her kit and ran a basic scan. The numbers were off. Extremely off. The density readout was higher than standard hardwood by 60%. Her heart skipped. She set the sample down, eyes narrowing. Her mother had been a quiet genius, a forestry specialist with a fascination for biological fortification, using natural enzymes and environmental pressures to create stronger organic materials. Emily had thought it was charming but outdated. Now she wasn't so sure. She took the sample to the small workshop out back and began running her own tests. Compressive strength. Flexural resilience. Moisture resistance. The data stunned her. This wood, whatever her mother had done to it, was stronger than aluminum, and nearly as resilient as the lower-grade carbon fibers she had worked with in grad school. Was it a fluke? She tore through the shed, looking for notes, journals, anything. In a rusted metal drawer beneath a toolbox, she found a binder with chemical diagrams, enzyme pathways, and handwritten annotations. Her mother had been close. Very close. That night, she ran experiments under a flickering fluorescent bulb, adrenaline pushing back the exhaustion. She modified the enzyme treatment, tweaked the compression cycle, and tried her own process using freeze-drying and resin infusion. The next morning, she had a 4x4 block of what looked like mahogany but felt like stone. She placed it under her hydraulic press, the one thing she had saved from the lab. The gauge climbed, 500 pounds, 1,000, 2,500, and still it held. At 3,200 psi, the standard limit for commercial softwood, it remained unbroken. At 4,000, a small fracture appeared. She smiled. This wasn't just strong wood. It was something else entirely. A new material. She grabbed her phone, opened the camera, and started recording. "Hey guys," she said, her voice shaky, "so I'm here in my workshop with a prototype of something I'm calling Superwood. Yeah, not original, I know. But you're going to want to see this." She showed the press, the sample, the gauge. Then, with a quiet intensity, she ran the test again. The numbers spoke for themselves. If this holds up to further testing, it could replace steel in certain construction applications, with 1/10 the carbon footprint. Let me know what you think. I'll keep you posted. She uploaded the video to her dormant YouTube channel and forgot about it. Until it didn't let her forget. By morning, the video had 10,000 views. By noon, 100,000. Her inbox filled with questions, offers, doubts, and one message that made her hands tremble. The subject line read, "From Elon." Inside, a single sentence, "Interesting. DM me." She stared at the screen. Was this a joke? Another email arrived, this one with a SpaceX domain and a request for a call. She paced the room. Elon Musk? Interested in her would sample. Her. A disgraced academic hiding out in Vermont. She typed a reply. It felt like stepping into traffic. Later that day, she joined a video call. The screen lit up, and there he was. Elon Musk. Casual hoodie, intense eyes, distracted brilliance. "I watched your test," he said. "If it's real, this could be useful. Mars habitats. Low Earth orbit structures. Sustainable Tesla interiors. When can you come out to LA?" Emily blinked. "I'm still working out the scalability, figure it out on the plane," he said, smiling. "We move fast here." Then the screen went black. She stood in the silence of her father's living room, the hum of the old refrigerator ticking in the background. This wasn't a comeback. This was something else. A second chance. A trap. A moment that could change everything. She didn't know. But she booked the flight. Because some doors, once opened, don't wait forever. The plane cut through the sky like a scalpel, dividing everything Emily thought she knew from everything she might become. Below her, the patchwork of New England forests gave way to the harsh, sun-blasted geometry of Los Angeles, a place she had only seen in photographs and dreams sponsored by ambition. She hadn't spoken to her father before leaving, hadn't explained the email or the urgency or why she had suddenly started wearing makeup again and checking her reflection like it mattered. She just left a note taped to the fridge, "Be back when I can." Might be something real this time. The rental car that picked her up from LAX smelled like mint and vinyl. The driver, a cheerful woman named Trina, tried to make conversation, asking if Emily was in town for business or pleasure. Emily said something in between, which wasn't quite true, but wasn't a lie either. The gates of SpaceX headquarters opened slowly, like the mouth of some mechanical god. Sleek glass walls rose up around her, reflecting back a version of herself that didn't belong. Wrinkled button-down shirt, backpack slung over one shoulder, hair tied in a nervous bun. She checked in with a receptionist who barely looked up before issuing her a badge that read, "Visitor, Dr. Emily Carson." She stared at it longer than necessary. Inside, the building was a quiet hum of brilliance. Engineers moved with intent. Monitors glowed with simulations of orbit paths, material stress tests, and CAD models of future spacecraft. No one noticed her. No one cared. Until they did. A tall man in a sharp gray t-shirt approached, smiling with the kind of ease that made her stomach knot. "Emily, right? Elon's upstairs. He asked me to bring you up." The man introduced himself as Sam, one of Musk's materials leads. As they stepped into the glass elevator, Sam asked, "So this stuff you made, Superwood, what is it, exactly? Just compressed hardwood or something more exotic?" Emily hesitated, then answered, "More exotic. It's been enzymatically altered at the cellular level, then freeze-dried and resin-fused for rigidity. Think of it as a biologically upgraded composite, carbon structure, but organic and regrown." Sam gave a low whistle. "If that's real, it could change everything." The elevator dinged. Elon Musk stood by a whiteboard scrawled with orbit arcs and math that looped like poetry. He turned without smiling. "Show me what you've got." Emily pulled out her sample, a 3x3 cube polished smooth, dark as walnut but dense enough to feel like steel in the hand. Elon took it, turned it over, knocked it against the metal edge of the table. It thudded like stone. "What's the tensile?" "Almost 250 MPa. I've pushed it further with resin matrix embedding, but the base structure holds its shape even after heat cycling." "Thermal resistance?" "Better than most synthetics under 600 degrees Celsius. Loses cohesion past that, but it doesn't ignite." "It characters." "Weight?" "1/5 the weight of steel at equal strength." Elon set it down. "And renewable? Regenerates from pulp in 18 days with my treatment. Biodegradable by custom enzyme. No waste." He stared at her for a beat too long. "This is the kind of thing we build Martian outposts with. Strong. Lightweight. Organic. Local growth potential. You realize what this means?" Emily nodded, but it wasn't confidence. It was a storm. "We need a full-scale prototype. Habitat-sized, field-tested. And we need it yesterday." She blinked. "I'd need a team. A lab. Resources, we'll cover it," Elon said. "But I want exclusivity on aerospace applications. You can keep civil and consumer. But the stars are mine." Her breath caught. Exclusive licensing from Musk could fund her work for a decade. But it was also a chain. A golden, titanium-forged chain. "I'll think about it." Elon smiled, the way wolves smile when they know the sheep is too tired to run. "Good. You've got 3 days to start prototyping. Sam will show you to the lab." And then he was gone, pulled into another meeting, another world. Sam led her down a hallway of glass and light to a workspace that looked like it belonged in a science fiction film. State-of-the-art milling machines, electron microscopes, composite autoclaves, and a materials library that made her chest ache. "Welcome to your new home," Sam said. "At least for now." Emily worked without stopping for 19 hours. She ordered in vegan burritos and black coffee. She wore the same clothes. She barely blinked. The sample she built, a foot-long beam reinforced with bioresin, was the most stable thing she had ever created. They stress-tested it. It passed. They heat-cycled it. It held. The lab tech started whispering when she walked in. A legend reborn, the disgraced genius now blessed by the world's richest man. But she didn't hear them. She only heard the thud of the sample when it struck the table. The next day, Elon returned. This time, he brought investors. A Saudi energy prince. A California venture capitalist. A woman from the World Bank with glacier eyes. They watched her demonstration, took notes, asked questions she didn't like. What's the IP status? How scalable is your enzyme process? What's the carbon offset in third world infrastructure projects? Elon waved his hand. We'll figure that out. What matters is that this stuff doesn't break. Right, Emily? She nodded. Under compression, no. But tensile strength still needs reinforcement. The prince smiled. And in a war zone? Emily flinched. It's not designed for that. It will be, Elon said quietly. We build for extremes. That night, she stepped outside into the parking lot and looked up at the stars. Somewhere beyond that sky were places humans hadn't touched. Maybe they didn't deserve to. Maybe they did. Her phone buzzed. A message from an old contact. Ben. Saw the video. Guess you're back. Coffee? She stared at it, torn between rage and something worse, curiosity. Ben had been her lab partner, her confidant, and, briefly, her lover during their second year of graduate school. Until he filed for patent credit without telling her. Until he sold a shared idea to a startup and walked away with both their futures. She deleted the message. She didn't have time for ghosts. But ghosts have a way of not staying buried. The next morning, a new video went viral. Someone had leaked her enzyme process, crudely copied, but close enough to damage her momentum. The Reddit thread speculated wildly. Biofortified, would that beat steel? Too good to be true. What's next? Treehouses on Mars. Emily's inbox filled with doubt. Sam called her into the lab. We've got a problem, he said. The leak's damaging our credibility. Elon wants a public demo. Something undeniable. She nodded. Fine. Let's do it live. They set up the test outdoors, 2 identical-looking beams, one superwood, one traditional hardwood. A massive hydraulic crusher would apply equal pressure. Cameras rolled. Engineers watched. Elon arrived in a Tesla Cybertruck. The traditional beam splintered at 1,200 psi. The Superwood one held past 3,000 before showing strain. Elon turned to the camera. This changes everything. The clip trended worldwide. Millions watched. Investors surged. NASA called. She was invited to speak at the Global Materials Summit. But that night, back in the guest quarters provided by SpaceX, Emily sat alone and wondered, had she built a dream, or had she just sold one? Ben's second message came at 2:13 a.m., long after the demo had gone viral, long after Elon Musk tweeted, Superwood is real. Stronger. Lighter. Greener, and the media circus swallowed Emily whole. This time the message read, nice work. Really? I didn't leak anything. She stared at the screen in the dim light of her suite at SpaceX HQ, her fingers hovering over the keyboard like they were waiting for a sign, a reason to answer, or to let silence keep its shape. But silence had a way of turning into weight. She typed back 2 words, prove it. Then she turned off her phone, rolled over, and stared at the ceiling, knowing full well that proving anything was a game Ben played better than most. Sleep didn't come. Morning brought emails, press requests, legal inquiries. An intellectual property lawyer from MIT reached out to ask about materials created during Emily's tenure. She ignored the email but knew she couldn't for long. Superwood wasn't just a curiosity anymore. It was real. Viable. Valuable. And that meant it was vulnerable. Elon didn't seem worried. He called her into his office that afternoon, grinning like a kid who'd found a cheat code. "We're going to build something big," he said. "Not just a beam. A structure. A superwood shelter. Then we'll drop it in a storm zone and let nature test it for us." Emily raised an eyebrow. "You want to fly this thing into a hurricane?" "Not fly," Elon said, amused. "Just place. Maybe Puerto Rico. Maybe the Gulf Coast. Make it a case study in sustainable resilience." Emily tried to keep up. Her instincts screamed that this was moving too fast. But her ambition whispered back, "This is what you've always wanted. Impact. Visibility. Proof. And maybe, redemption." "Okay," she said. "Let's build." She was flown to a SpaceX-affiliated R&D campus near Austin, Texas, where a skeleton team had already begun prepping materials. Working with engineers she'd never met, sleeping in a cot beside industrial extruders and fiber spinners, she found herself immersed in something thrilling and terrifying. For the first time since grad school, Emily wasn't fighting for attention or validation. She had it. But with it came a pressure that bent bones. The prototype shelter was a 20 by 20 structure, designed to withstand wind shear, seismic vibration, and even impact force. Superwood beams framed the walls. Panels infused with her bioresin formed a skin that breathed like wood but resisted fire, mold, and rot. Elon wanted it built in 5 days. "People move faster under pressure," he said, as if that was a universal truth. On day 3, Ben showed up. He walked into the lab wearing a visitor badge and a sheepish expression that did nothing to reduce Emily's instant spike of adrenaline and fury. "What are you doing here?" she asked, flat and sharp. "I reached out to Sam," he said. "Told him I had something you'd want to see. He said if you approved, I could show you." She glared at Sam, who gave a shrug that said it wasn't my call. Ben pulled a USB drive from his pocket. "I've been working on thermal insulation using a polymer-free aerogel derived from recycled pulp. Thought it might integrate well with your outer panels. Boost the thermal stability." Emily crossed her arms. "And you're just giving this to me out of the goodness of your heart?" Ben winced. "No. I'm giving it to you because I want to make this right." The weight of old wounds sat between them like an unmarked grave. They hadn't spoken in over 3 years. Not since she found out he'd filed a provisional patent behind her back, an idea they developed together, during a fevered month of sleepless design and shared belief. He'd gone solo, sold it to a startup, and left her behind. It hadn't been illegal. But it had been betrayal, pure and simple. "I don't need your tech," she said. "I have enough to build this." "Maybe. But what about scaling it for climates over 120 degrees? What about lunar temperature swings? You think Elon's going to stop at shelters in Puerto Rico?" That hit too close. Because she had already been thinking it. Thinking past Earth. Thinking big. And that was the problem. That was always the problem. Ambition made you look forward even when you should be looking around. "You get no credit," she said. "None. If it works, it's part of the material. Nothing else." Ben nodded. "Deal." They tested the aerogel under stress. It worked better than expected. Cut internal temp fluctuation by 80%. Emily hated that it was good. Hated that he was good. Hated that part of her still wanted to trust him. But she was too close now. The shelter neared completion. Media invites went out. The test site was chosen, a coastal town in Florida still recovering from last year's Category 5. The idea was simple: drop the structure into an empty lot, wait for the next storm, and see if it stood. Before the team shipped the shelter, Elon visited again. He walked around the structure, tapping beams, testing joints, muttering to himself. "It's beautiful," he finally said. Like a cathedral from the future. Emily stood beside him, tired and wired. It's also built with local materials, grown in 6 weeks, zero cement. The carbon offset alone makes it revolutionary. Elon nodded. We should test it on Mars. She laughed, until she saw he wasn't joking. I'm serious, he said. If we can grow superwood in a closed environment, use Martian soil analogs for substrate, we're talking about self-replicating habitats. She stared at him. That's 10 years away at best. Maybe 5, he said. With the right team. Then he looked at her like a recruiter, not a partner. Are you in this for a building? Or are you in it for a legacy? She didn't answer. Not then. Not aloud. But her silence echoed through the lab like a vow. The shelter was loaded onto a flatbed and driven south under tight security. A documentary crew followed it. Emily followed in a blacked-out SUV with Ben and Sam, each pretending the car ride wasn't the most awkward silence they'd ever endured. In Florida, the team erected the shelter in less than 6 hours. No heavy cranes. No diesel generators. Just interlocking beams, pre-assembled panels, and 30 bolts. The whole thing weighed less than a typical shipping container. Locals watched, skeptical but curious. Y'all sure that's gonna stand up to wind? A man asked, holding a battered umbrella. Emily smiled. We'll find out. The test came sooner than expected. A tropical storm upgraded to hurricane status overnight. The eye tracked toward the coast. Evacuations were ordered. The media pounced. Headlines lit up. SpaceX tests Superwood shelter against incoming storm. CNN sent a chopper. Elon tweeted, "We don't run from tests. We face them." Emily couldn't sleep. She watched the radar. Watched the sky darken. Watched the wind bend trees like rubber. When the hurricane hit, it tore through the town like a freight train. Roofs flew. Power lines snapped. But the Superwood shelter held. Cameras caught the moment a fallen telephone pole smashed into the roof. The beam dented. Didn't break. Water surged around the base, but the structure stayed sealed. When the storm passed, and the team returned to inspect the damage, Emily stepped into the shelter and felt something she hadn't felt in years. Peace. It had held. It had worked. The footage went viral again. This time, no one questioned. Not even MIT. They emailed her a formal apology and offered to reopen negotiations. Her name cleared, her project funded, and the world watching. Emily stood at the edge of the ocean and wondered what came next. Behind her, Ben stepped out of the SUV. You did it, he said. She didn't look at him. We did it. I guess. He nodded. I'm sorry, Emily. I really am. She turned to face him. You owe me more than sorry. You owe me time. Years. He swallowed. Then let me help from now on. No tricks. No papers behind your back. Just, let me stay. The wind blew his words out to sea. She looked at him for a long moment. We'll see. And walked back to the shelter, her legacy rising behind her, stronger than steel. The buzz never really stopped after the storm. Every major outlet picked up the story. The wooden wonder that survived the hurricane. SpaceX bets on Superwood. The female scientist redefining resilience. Emily's face was suddenly everywhere, on magazine covers, morning news shows, and science podcasts. She hated it. Not the recognition, but the distortion. They got it wrong. They said she invented Superwood when the truth was more tangled. Her mother's notes, her own obsession, the freak accident of being at the right emotional rock bottom to see something others overlooked, it wasn't invention. It was something closer to inheritance. But stories like that didn't sell. What sold was her standing on the remains of a flooded Florida street, one hand on the wooden frame of a shelter that hadn't bent, her wind-blown hair perfectly wild, her expression one of quiet defiance. She didn't even remember the camera being there. It didn't matter. The image had already gone global. The week after the storm, she was flown back to SpaceX HQ for a debrief. Elon was waiting in the same glass office, arms crossed, eyes bright. "You've just bought yourself a lot of attention," he said. "Hope you're ready." She sat down slowly, wary. "What kind of attention?" He tapped a tablet, scrolling through articles, tweets, investment offers. "Everyone wants a piece now, UN, FEMA, private defense contractors. They want Superwood in war zones, in deserts, in disaster response. Hell, IKEA called." Emily blinked. "IKEA?" "Flat pack shelters," Elon said. "Mass production. Cheap. Fast. You walk into a store, walk out with a house." The idea was absurd. And brilliant. And terrifying. She tried to imagine her material mass-produced and shrink-wrapped, tossed into trucks by the thousands. She couldn't. "It's not ready," she said. "I still need testing. We don't know the failure thresholds in Arctic climates. Or radiation exposure. Or multi-year degradation." Elon smiled like that was a joke. "That's what Phase 2 is for. This is the part where we scale." Emily felt the pressure close in like a fist. She hadn't had a day off in nearly a month. Her father's texts went unanswered. Her inbox overflowed. The only time she could think clearly was at 3 a.m. in an empty lab with jazz playing low in her earbuds and a half-dismantled beam on the table. She didn't say no. But she didn't say yes either. That night, she called her dad. For the first time in weeks, he picked up. "Heard you built something they couldn't knock down," he said without greeting. "Yeah," she said, sitting in a dark hotel room overlooking the freeway. "I think I did." There was silence on the line, then a low grunt of approval. "Your mother would have liked that. She hated nails. Said they made trees scream." Emily smiled despite herself. She was weird. "She was brilliant," her father corrected. "Just like you." The words hit harder than they should have. She had spent so long thinking of him as cold, distant. But maybe that was just the version of him she needed to survive leaving home. "You should visit," he said after a pause. "When this slows down." "I don't think it's going to slow down," she whispered. "Not for a while." A beat passed. "Well," he said, "then at least remember to eat." The call ended and left her with an ache she couldn't name. The next morning, she walked into a meeting with Elon and a team of engineers tasked with adapting Superwood for off-Earth applications. The mood was electric. "We've got plans for a lunar regolith habitat shell," said one of the leads, a woman named Kavita. "If your enzyme process can be adapted to Martian microbes, we might be able to grow structures on site." Emily stared at the hologram projections. They looked like dream architecture, smooth curves, living walls, bioluminescent insets. "This isn't just about buildings," Elon said. "This is about ecosystems. Self-repairing habitats. Renewable structures in space. Think bioterraforming." "It's a long shot," Kavita added. "We're still not sure the compression protocol will hold under low gravity." Emily leaned forward. "Then we test it." Over the next 2 weeks, she threw herself into the new project. They called it Project Canopy. The goal: build a sealed dome using only Superwood-derived components and test its viability in a simulated Martian environment. No plastics. No metals. Just grown, engineered wood. The dome was to be built in the Mojave Desert, inside a biosphere dome that mimicked Martian conditions: high UV exposure, low humidity, temperature swings between -80 and 40 degrees Celsius. Emily oversaw every detail. She modified the enzyme blend to incorporate extremophile DNA sequences. She engineered the resin to contain self-healing microcapsules. She barely slept. Ben returned, staying on-site and working under her supervision. Their truce held, mostly because neither of them had the energy to fight. One night, they sat on the edge of the testing dome and stared out at the desert stars. "You really think this could end up on Mars?" he asked. She nodded. "Eventually. But first, we see if it can survive Earth pretending to be Mars." He laughed. "You're still crazy. And you're still chasing my coattails," she said, smirking. "Some things never change." He looked at her, quiet. "Some things do." She didn't answer. Because the truth was, she didn't know what she felt anymore. Pride? Fear? Exhaustion? All of it, layered like bark. When the Superwood dome was complete, it stood like a sculpture carved from the future. Inside, it was cool, dry, and quiet. Sensors embedded in the walls transmitted data every second. Emily moved in for 72 hours, testing not just durability but livability. She slept under its curved ceiling. She drank water condensed through its passive humidity channels. She ran her fingers along the walls and whispered to her mother in the quiet. On the last day, Elon arrived. He walked through the dome in silence, nodding. "You did it," he said. "And if we can grow this on Mars, we'll never need to ship steel again," Emily finished. "We build where we land." He looked at her. "You ready to take this global?" She paused, then asked, "What does that mean, exactly?" Elon smiled. "It means we launch a foundation. The Superwood Initiative. You lead. We fund. We build in disaster zones, refugee camps, wherever the world needs shelter and sustainability." Emily felt her breath catch. "And what do you get?" "The future," he said simply. "You get the credit. I get the infrastructure." The offer was so massive, so absurdly ambitious, it almost didn't feel real. She wanted to say yes. She wanted to say no. She said, "Let me think about it." That night, she walked alone into the dome and sat beneath its central beam, heart pounding. She thought about her mother's old notebooks. About her father's silence. About Ben's betrayal. About the fire in Lab 6A, and the ash it left behind. She thought about the shelter that didn't break. About the millions of people without homes. About the red planet waiting for its first footprint. And somewhere in all that thinking, she realized the truth. This wasn't about proving herself anymore. It was about proving that nature, if understood, respected, and gently re-engineered, could offer something better than concrete and greed. Something alive. Something that healed. She stood, looked around the dome, and whispered, "Okay. Let's build." The launch of the Superwood Initiative was a spectacle unlike any Emily had ever experienced. Media caravans lined the perimeter of the sprawling SpaceX campus in Texas, broadcasting live as Elon Musk took to the stage with his characteristic blend of vision and bravado. Cameras zoomed in on Emily as she stood beside him, feeling the weight of every gaze, every expectation. The project wasn't just a technical breakthrough anymore, it was a beacon for sustainable innovation, a symbol of what humanity could achieve by reimagining the very materials we build with. Emily's mind raced with everything she'd learned, the failures, the betrayals, the endless nights poring over data, but now it felt distilled into purpose. Elon spoke about transforming disaster relief, housing the homeless, and eventually colonizing Mars, each promise hanging heavy in the Texas sun. When it was her turn, Emily stepped forward, her voice steady but charged with emotion. Superwood is more than a material. It's a commitment to the future, our future. We are building homes that grow like trees, heal like living organisms, and carry the stories of resilience and hope. The crowd erupted in applause, but inside her, the storm of uncertainty still brewed. Leading the initiative meant stepping into uncharted territory, not just scientifically but politically and socially. Investors poured in with capital, some with strings attached. Government officials demanded results and accountability. Activists questioned the environmental ethics of scaling bioengineered materials. Even Elon, whose enthusiasm was infectious, sometimes pushed too hard, demanding faster timelines and grander promises. The first test site under the initiative was a remote village in the Philippines, devastated repeatedly by typhoons and rising seas. The plan was to replace crumbling homes with modular superwood shelters that could be grown locally, using minimal energy and no harmful chemicals. Emily flew there with a team of engineers and biologists, her heart pounding as she stepped off the plane into the humid tropical air. The villagers were skeptical at first. How could this strange new wood be better than the concrete and corrugated steel they'd known? Some dismissed it as a gimmick, others as a dangerous experiment. Emily spent long days meeting families, explaining the science and the promise behind Superwood. She showed them how the material absorbed moisture but resisted rot, how it could flex without snapping under wind pressure, how it was designed to repair itself. Slowly, the walls went up. Local workers learned to cultivate the bioengineered fibers and mix the resin on-site, becoming part of the process instead of mere laborers. Children played in the shade of newly built shelters, their laughter cutting through the humidity like music. But progress was never linear. One night, a monsoon flooded the village, and Emily woke to the sound of rushing water and crashing debris. Rushing outside, she saw that several shelters had been undermined by erosion and standing water. Some panels were warped, others cracked. It was a devastating setback. As the village recovered, Emily worked tirelessly with her team to analyze the damage, tweaking the resin composition and reinforcing the foundation designs. The locals, instead of turning away, doubled down on their efforts, proud of being part of something bigger. Elon called that night from California. "You're facing the real world now," he said. "Messy. Unpredictable. But that's where we find truth." Exhausted but determined, Emily found solace in quiet conversations with Ben, whose partnership had transformed from uneasy to essential. "We're doing more than just building structures," he said one evening, handing her a cup of strong coffee under the stars. "We're building trust. Between people, and between us and the planet." She nodded, feeling the truth in his words, even as old wounds flickered beneath the surface. The next phase took the initiative to the Mojave Desert, where they constructed the first Superwood research campus focused on space applications. The desert sun blazed down on domes and labs humming with life. Here, the work was different, more controlled, more theoretical. Emily oversaw experiments growing superwood components in Martian soil simulants, testing radiation resistance, and improving enzymatic growth rates. It was a realm of microscopes and data sheets, far removed from the tropical storms of the Philippines, but no less critical. The media began to catch on to the dual nature of Superwood's promise, earthbound salvation and interplanetary ambition. Public interest soared, bringing with it a wave of scrutiny. Environmental groups raised concerns about genetically modifying organisms for mass production. Some critics warned that rushing to scale without thorough testing could lead to ecological disasters. Emily faced them head-on in public forums and interviews, emphasizing transparency and a commitment to ethical science. Despite the challenges, the initiative gained momentum, drawing in collaborators from universities, NGOs, and governments worldwide. Emily found herself juggling scientific innovation, diplomacy, and unexpected motherhood of a global movement. It was exhausting but exhilarating. One evening, after a grueling day, she sat on the roof of the Mojave campus watching the sun dip behind the mountains. Her phone buzzed with a message from her father, "Saw you on TV." Proud. The simple words brought tears she hadn't realized she was holding back. In that moment, surrounded by the desert's vast quiet, Emily felt the full weight of her journey, from a lonely graduate student haunted by failures to a leader shaping the future of human habitation. She knew the road ahead would be long and uncertain, but beneath the vast canopy of stars and synthetic wood, hope felt tangible. The future was growing, and it was stronger than steel. The excitement around the Superwood initiative soon collided with harsh realities no one had fully anticipated. Scaling a bioengineered material from lab experiments and prototype shelters to mass production across diverse climates and cultures revealed a complex web of technical, ethical, and social challenges. One morning, Emily received an urgent call from Kavita, the lead engineer working on the Mars habitat prototypes in the Mojave Desert. "We've hit a snag," Kavita said, voice tense. "The enzyme synthesis is degrading faster than expected under continuous UV exposure. If we don't fix this, the dome's structural integrity won't last beyond 6 months." Emily's stomach tightened. Mars was a hostile environment, and this setback meant the material might not withstand the rigors of space habitation. "Can we adapt the enzyme to include UV-resistant properties from extremophile bacteria?" she asked. "We're already trying," Kavita replied. "But the trade-off is slower growth rates and higher energy consumption." The delicate balance between durability and sustainability was proving harder than anyone had hoped. Back on Earth, reports from the Philippines test site brought their own set of problems. The monsoon had caused more damage than initially thought. Some superwood panels showed signs of fungal growth, something the original enzyme composition was supposed to resist. Locals expressed frustration, some questioning if this new material was worth the hope pinned on it. Emily felt the pressure mounting like a storm cloud she couldn't outrun. Public skepticism grew louder, fed by social media posts from activists warning against unnatural materials and the risks of genetic engineering. The Superwood initiative's PR team scrambled to contain rumors and misinformation, but every new article seemed to fan the flames of doubt. Late nights at the lab blurred into early mornings. Emily pored over chemical analyses, tweaking resin formulas, resequencing DNA strands for the enzymes. She worked herself to exhaustion, feeling the sharp edges of loneliness despite being surrounded by teams of scientists and engineers. Ben stayed by her side, helping run simulations and test new prototypes. They shared long, quiet moments when the weight of responsibility became almost unbearable. "We're rewriting the rules of construction," Ben said one evening as they watched data streaming on screens. "But it feels like we're walking a tightrope without a net." Emily nodded. "If we fall, it's not just our careers on the line. It's people's lives." Then came a visit from a coalition of indigenous leaders and environmental activists who requested a meeting at the Mojave campus. They challenged Emily and her team to address the implications of introducing genetically engineered materials into natural ecosystems, arguing it could disrupt biodiversity and cultural heritage. The discussions were tense, often uncomfortable. Emily realized that the initiative was more than science, it was about trust, values, and listening to voices beyond the lab. She committed to forming an advisory council that included these stakeholders, hoping to build bridges instead of walls. Meanwhile, at SpaceX headquarters, Elon Musk's ambitious plans for off-world construction accelerated. The company's new prototype rover was scheduled for a Mars mission in the next 2 years, and Elon insisted that Superwood structures be ready to deploy by then. "We need this to work," he told Emily during a meeting, eyes intense. "Mars colonization depends on durable, lightweight habitats that can be grown in situ. No more shipping steel or concrete. This is it." The timeline was crushing. Emily and her team scrambled to meet deadlines, juggling unexpected failures with rapid innovation. The pressure strained relationships, some engineers resigned, others argued fiercely over methodology. Emily found herself mediating conflicts, trying to keep the team focused and motivated. The emotional toll was profound. One night, after a particularly brutal day, she broke down in tears in the empty lab. Ben found her and sat silently beside her, offering quiet support. "You don't have to carry this alone," he said softly. "We're in this together." The words reminded her of her mother's old notebooks, her mother who had dreamed of sustainable building decades before anyone else and had never lived to see it come true. Emily vowed to carry that legacy forward. Just as she began to regain footing, another crisis struck. A whistleblower from within the initiative leaked internal documents revealing that the enzyme DNA sequences were partially derived from endangered tree species native to the Amazon. The revelation sparked outrage, with accusations of biopiracy and environmental exploitation. The backlash was swift and merciless. Funding stalled, legal investigations began, and the initiative's reputation hung by a thread. Emily faced the media storm head-on, issuing public apologies and promising transparency. "We made mistakes," she admitted in a televised statement. "But we are committed to ethical science and protecting the natural world." Behind the scenes, Emily and her team worked tirelessly to find synthetic alternatives that didn't rely on protected species, navigating complex intellectual property and international environmental law. Slowly, trust began to rebuild, but the damage lingered. Through it all, Emily learned the power of humility and accountability. She leaned on her team, on her father's quiet wisdom, and on the lessons her mother had inscribed in those yellowed pages. The initiative adapted. New protocols were implemented. Environmental oversight became a core pillar, not just an afterthought. In the midst of this turbulence, a breakthrough emerged. Kavita's lab announced a successful synthesis of a UV-resistant enzyme that did not compromise growth rate or sustainability. The Mojave domes endured a simulated solar storm without structural failure. The Superwood initiative was back on track, stronger and more resilient. Emily stood in the Mojave Desert under the hot sun, watching technicians erect a new dome, this time more robust, more elegant. She thought of the long journey, from that first flood-proof shelter in Florida to a material that could protect humanity's future on Earth and beyond. As the wind stirred the desert dust, she felt a quiet sense of peace. The road was still long, and the challenges far from over, but the future was unfolding. She looked up at the sky, a vast canvas of possibility, and whispered to herself, "We're just getting started." The global spotlight on Superwood shifted as governments began to weigh its potential impacts on economies and industries deeply rooted in traditional materials like steel and concrete. Lobbyists from construction giants and timber associations ramped up pressure, fearing a disruption that could upend markets worth billions. Emily found herself thrust into a political arena she never anticipated entering, negotiating between innovation and entrenched interests. Invitations to closed-door meetings in Washington, D.C., became routine, where policymakers grilled her on safety, scalability, and economic consequences. She realized that making the future wasn't just a matter of science, it was a battle of wills, influence, and persuasion. One afternoon, Emily attended a congressional hearing where industry representatives painted Superwood as a risky, untested gamble that could threaten jobs and national security. As she took the stand, heart pounding, she presented meticulously gathered data proving Superwood's strength, sustainability, and cost-effectiveness. She shared stories from disaster zones where Superwood shelters saved lives, underscoring the urgency for innovation in a changing climate. The room's atmosphere was tense, a delicate dance between skepticism and curiosity. After the hearing, a senator approached her quietly. "You've got guts," he said. "But this fight will test more than your science." Meanwhile, back in the lab, the initiative expanded its horizons, branching into innovative applications beyond housing. Designers and engineers experimented with Superwood in furniture, transportation, and even electronics casing, marveling at its lightweight durability and natural aesthetic. Emily marveled at how her mother's old handwritten notes had blossomed into a multifaceted revolution. Yet, the pressure was relentless. Balancing scientific breakthroughs with political battles drained her. She began to question if the cost was worth the cause. Late nights at the Mojave campus turned into weeks without a proper break. One evening, sitting alone beneath the desert stars, she received a call from Ben. His voice was soft but urgent. "Emily, we need to talk. There's a leak in the bioreactor system. If it ruptures, it could contaminate the entire production batch. Panic surged through her veins. That reactor contained months of engineered enzyme cultures critical to scaling production. She raced to the lab, her mind spinning with worst-case scenarios. Upon arrival, the team was already working to contain the leak, but it was clear the damage was severe. Equipment failures, sabotage, or just the growing pains of cutting-edge technology? No one knew. The incident sparked internal investigations, and rumors of corporate espionage circulated. Emily's faith in her team wavered as tensions rose. Yet, through the turmoil, she found unexpected solidarity. The Indigenous Advisory Council, once skeptical, offered support and resources to help secure and protect the facilities. Their relationship deepened, turning from wary observation to active partnership. The initiative began incorporating traditional ecological knowledge into its protocols, blending ancient wisdom with futuristic science. Emily saw this alliance as a beacon of hope amid uncertainty. Publicly, the initiative maintained transparency, releasing detailed reports and engaging communities in dialogue about the risks and rewards of Superwood. Slowly, trust was rebuilt. The political landscape also shifted when a coalition of environmental groups endorsed the initiative, recognizing its potential to reduce carbon footprints and deforestation. This endorsement opened new doors, unlocking funding and legislative support. In the midst of these victories, Emily was invited to speak at the United Nations Climate Summit. Standing before a global audience, she recounted the journey of Superwood, from a flood-proof shelter in Florida to a symbol of resilience and hope worldwide. She emphasized the responsibility innovators bear to listen, adapt, and prioritize ethical stewardship. Her words resonated deeply, sparking collaborations and inspiring youth movements advocating sustainable technologies. Returning from the summit, Emily felt a renewed sense of purpose. She understood that science alone could not solve the planet's crises, it required humanity's collective will and compassion. With this clarity, she steered the initiative into new phases. Developing community-led production hubs, investing in education programs, and launching pilot projects in vulnerable regions. The road remained fraught with challenges, but Emily embraced the complexity, knowing that every obstacle was an opportunity to grow stronger. One quiet afternoon, as she walked through the Mojave campus, she paused to touch the smooth surface of a newly grown Superwood panel. It was warm beneath her fingers, alive in a way that felt both ancient and futuristic. She thought of her mother's dreams, her father's encouragement, and the countless lives touched by this material. The future was no longer just a distant vision, it was unfolding, tangible and unstoppable. And Emily was at its heart. The next phase of the Superwood initiative brought Emily and her team to the heart of the American Midwest, a region battered by tornadoes and extreme weather patterns, desperate for resilient and sustainable housing solutions. The community in Moore, Oklahoma, was chosen for its history of destruction and rebuilding, a testament to human endurance that resonated deeply with Emily. Upon arrival, she was struck by the familiar landscape of battered homes and resilient faces, a place where every storm told a story. The goal was ambitious, to construct an entire neighborhood using Superwood modules, proving that the material could scale from single shelters to whole communities. Local workers were trained in a unique cultivation and assembly techniques, blending traditional craftsmanship with cutting-edge bioengineering. The process wasn't seamless. Equipment failures, unexpected weather delays, and lingering community skepticism tested Emily's resolve. But as the first homes rose, their smooth, organic lines glowing softly in the setting sun, something remarkable happened, a shift in the town's spirit. Families saw hope not just in the structures but in the promise of a future less defined by fear. Children ran through newly formed parks, their laughter weaving through the streets like a balm to the scars of the past. Emily found herself drawn to Mary, a single mother whose home had been destroyed in the last tornado. Mary's resilience mirrored Emily's own, her determination a source of quiet strength. They bonded over shared stories of loss and the fierce desire to protect their loved ones. Meanwhile, Elon's vision expanded even further. He announced plans to integrate Superwood into Tesla's electric vehicle frames, aiming to reduce weight and improve sustainability across the board. The initiative to blend the material into various industries accelerated, opening unprecedented research collaborations but also straining resources and attention. The political landscape, though warmer than before, still demanded vigilance. Lobbyists pushed back against Tesla's use of Superwood, fearing disruption in automotive supply chains. Regulatory hurdles slowed deployment, requiring careful navigation and diplomacy. Emily's leadership skills were tested in new ways, balancing innovation with pragmatism, urgency with patience. At night, she often lay awake, reflecting on the immense responsibility resting on her shoulders. The weight of expectations, personal, professional, and societal, pressed heavily. Yet in these moments, she found clarity in the support of her team and the community they served. A breakthrough came when Mary's Superwood home withstood a severe tornado warning without damage, proof that the material could deliver on its promise. News spread quickly, bringing renewed optimism and media attention. Emily used the spotlight to highlight not only the technology but the human stories intertwined with it. Her message was simple yet powerful: innovation rooted in compassion could reshape the future. But even amidst triumph, Emily faced moments of doubt. The relentless pace and high stakes took a toll on her health and relationships. Conflicts with Elon over timelines and priorities sparked tension, revealing cracks in their partnership. At a critical meeting, Elon pushed for a rushed rollout in new markets, while Emily urged caution and thorough testing. Their clash underscored the challenge of balancing visionary ambition with grounded execution. In quiet moments, Emily revisited the words her mother had written decades ago about patience and perseverance, finding strength in those enduring lessons. She reached out to her father more often, seeking his steady wisdom and grounding presence. Together, they navigated the complexities of success and sacrifice. As the Midwest project neared completion, Emily stood with Mary and other families during a community celebration, watching children play freely in parks bordered by sleek Superwood homes. The sun dipped low, casting golden light that shimmered off the organic surfaces. In that moment, Emily felt a profound sense of fulfillment and hope. The journey had been fraught with setbacks and struggles, but the future they were building, stronger than steel, rooted in nature and innovation, was real. She knew the road ahead would still have obstacles, but the foundation had been laid for a new chapter in human resilience and sustainability. The success in the Midwest brought a surge of international interest, and soon Emily found herself coordinating projects in unexpected corners of the world, from the cold, remote villages of Scandinavia to the dense urban neighborhoods of Mumbai. Each location presented unique challenges, and Superwood's adaptability was put to the test in climates that ranged from frigid winters to sweltering heat. In Norway, engineers modified the enzyme composites to resist freeze-thaw cycles, ensuring that structures could endure months of sub-zero temperatures without cracking or losing integrity. Emily flew there during the long polar night to oversee the installation of insulated Superwood housing for communities struggling with energy costs and infrastructure decay. The silence of the Arctic landscape, punctuated only by the crackling of distant ice, was a stark contrast to the warmth and laughter inside the new homes. The villagers welcomed Emily with cautious optimism, eager to see if this strange, future wood could really offer lasting comfort and security. Meanwhile, in Mumbai, where space was scarce and population density intense, the team faced a different set of trials. High humidity and pollution required adjustments to the bioengineered material to prevent accelerated degradation. They also had to develop modular designs that maximized vertical space while remaining lightweight enough for rapid assembly. Emily visited crowded slums where families had lost their homes to floods and fires, their resilience reminding her of her own struggles and those of the people she met in Moore, Oklahoma. Partnerships with local NGOs and governments were crucial, but red tape and political tensions complicated progress. Throughout these global endeavors, Emily became increasingly aware of Superwood's potential to democratize shelter and infrastructure, offering affordable, sustainable solutions tailored to diverse needs. But she also recognized the fine line between innovation and cultural sensitivity. Technology alone couldn't fix systemic inequalities or replace community-driven development. She worked to embed education and empowerment programs alongside construction efforts, ensuring that people weren't just recipients of aid but active participants in shaping their futures. Back in the United States, the initiative's research division made a startling discovery. By manipulating the enzymatic pathways, they could create superwood variants with electrical conductivity and enhanced flexibility. This breakthrough opened possibilities in electronics and robotics, further expanding Superwood's role beyond architecture. Elon's vision of integrating Superwood into Tesla's manufacturing suddenly seemed more tangible than ever. However, this rapid expansion brought new complexities. Funding priorities shifted, and some longtime collaborators felt sidelined. Emily grappled with maintaining cohesion amid the initiative's growing scale and scope. Beyond technical challenges, the psychological toll on the team mounted. The dream of colonizing Mars, once abstract, now felt crushingly real. The stakes were no longer theoretical but matters of life and death. Emily struggled with sleepless nights, haunted by the possibility that their work might fail not just on Earth but on another planet where human survival depended on it. Then, in the midst of this tension, an unexpected message arrived from NASA, a partnership proposal to integrate Superwood into their upcoming lunar habitat projects. This collaboration promised increased resources and visibility but demanded even greater transparency and rigorous standards. Emily welcomed the opportunity but knew it would intensify scrutiny and complexity. The initiative expanded rapidly, with engineers and scientists from around the world joining the effort. Coordination became a monumental task. Emily found herself shifting from hands-on scientist to project leader, managing budgets, international relations, and media narratives. The burden was immense, yet she remained grounded by a core belief that their work transcended individual ambition and was about humanity's future. As launch day approached, Emily took a moment to visit her mother's grave. Standing there, she whispered, "We're almost there. Your dream is alive." The ceremony was bittersweet, a reminder of sacrifices made and the legacy carried forward. When the rover carrying the Superwood habitat finally lifted off, Emily watched with a mix of pride and anxiety. The months ahead would test everything they had built: scientific knowledge, resilience, and hope. Early signals from Mars confirmed the habitat's deployment was successful, and the Superwood structures began to self-assemble, glowing faintly under the alien sun. Emily's team monitored the process obsessively, heartbeats syncing with data pulses from millions of miles away. Then, disaster struck. A solar flare erupted, sending waves of radiation that threatened to damage the delicate enzymatic networks crucial for Superwood's regeneration. The habitat's stability hung by a thread. Emily coordinated an emergency response with SpaceX engineers, deploying protective shielding protocols and tweaking enzyme inhibitors remotely. The crisis lasted tense hours, each moment stretching endlessly. When the flare subsided, initial assessments showed minimal damage. The habitat had survived. Relief washed over the team, but the event underscored the precarious nature of their endeavor. Months passed with steady progress. The first astronauts to live within the Superwood habitat reported feelings of safety and comfort previously unattainable in space structures. The material's ability to adapt and heal minor damage was hailed as revolutionary. Emily received messages from Earth congratulating her team, yet she remained vigilant. Mars was only the beginning. Back on Earth, the Superwood initiative influenced a surge in sustainable architecture worldwide. Governments adopted policies encouraging bioengineered materials, while communities embraced new models of resilience. Emily reflected on the journey, from a desperate need to protect flood victims to enabling humanity's leap into the cosmos. The road had been brutal and exhilarating, marked by failure, hope, and transformation. She understood now that progress required not just invention but empathy and perseverance. As the sun set on a new horizon, Emily stood watching the Mojave Desert skyline, feeling the pulse of a living future beneath her fingertips. The Superwood story was far from over, but one truth was clear: humanity's greatest strength was its ability to grow, adapt, and reach for the stars. After the groundbreaking success on Mars and the partnership with NASA, Emily and her team faced new challenges that tested their resilience in unexpected ways. The rapid expansion of Superwood applications had caught the attention of powerful industrial competitors, many of whom felt threatened by this bioengineered revolution. A campaign of misinformation and fear-mongering began to spread, questioning the safety and ethics of growing materials through enzymatic processes. Social media buzzed with rumors of genetic contamination and unnatural mutations, fueling public anxiety. Emily found herself defending Superwood not only in scientific forums but also in viral online debates and televised interviews. She realized that the battle for the future was as much about winning hearts and minds as it was about scientific breakthroughs. The initiative launched an extensive public education campaign, hosting open labs and interactive exhibits designed to demystify the technology and showcase its benefits transparently. Despite these efforts, pockets of resistance remained, fueled by cultural fears and economic interests. Internally, the pressure mounted as supply chains struggled to keep up with demand and production errors began to surface in some remote facilities. One particularly alarming incident involved a batch of Superwood panels that failed structural integrity tests due to a contamination in the enzyme cultures. The news shook the initiative's credibility and prompted a deep internal audit. Emily took full responsibility, seeing this crisis as a test of leadership and accountability. She doubled down on quality control and forged closer ties with local communities to ensure production standards were maintained worldwide. At home, the relentless pace and constant scrutiny began to take a toll on Emily's personal life. She and Ben drifted apart as her commitment to the initiative consumed her time and energy. She struggled with guilt and loneliness, questioning whether the sacrifices were justified. A moment of clarity came during a late-night conversation with her father, who reminded her, progress isn't a straight line. It's messy and painful, but it's worth it if it brings people together. Inspired by this, Emily reached out to Ben, seeking reconciliation and balance. On the research front, a surprising discovery offered new hope. A graduate student experimenting with enzyme variants found a strain that accelerated Superwood's growth rate without compromising strength. This breakthrough promised to dramatically reduce production times and costs, potentially making the material accessible to even more communities globally. Emily championed this innovation, but she also insisted on rigorous testing to avoid repeating past mistakes. Meanwhile, Elon Musk's public profile soared alongside Superwood's fame, and he used his platform to promote sustainability and innovation relentlessly. Emily often found herself both inspired and challenged by his larger-than-life vision and uncompromising standards. Their dynamic was complex, a mix of collaboration, tension, and mutual respect. As the initiative prepared to unveil the next generation of Superwood-enabled projects, Emily reflected on how far the material had come from its humble beginnings. It was no longer just a construction material, it was a symbol of human ingenuity, resilience, and hope. Yet she knew the journey ahead would require humility, adaptability, and unwavering dedication. In a world increasingly defined by uncertainty, Superwood offered a tangible promise, that by working with nature, not against it, humanity could build a stronger, more sustainable future. Emily's story was far from over, but the lessons of perseverance, collaboration, and compassion would guide every step forward. The unexpected surge in demand for Superwood created a new challenge: how to sustainably source the raw biological materials needed for mass production without harming delicate ecosystems. Emily and her team realized that scaling the initiative's enzymatic growth facilities required careful balance. Too much strain on natural resources could undermine their mission of sustainability. In response, the initiative began partnering with indigenous communities worldwide to develop regenerative harvesting programs that honored traditional ecological knowledge. These partnerships blossomed into symbiotic relationships, where Superwood cultivation supported local economies and biodiversity instead of depleting them. Emily traveled to the Amazon rainforest to witness firsthand how this approach was unfolding. The lush canopy teemed with life, and the indigenous elders welcomed her with cautious hospitality. Over fires and shared stories, Emily learned about centuries-old practices of managing forests sustainably. She felt humbled and inspired, recognizing that true innovation required respect for ancient wisdom as much as modern science. Back at the initiative's Mojave headquarters, new protocols integrated these lessons into Superwood production. Bioreactors were designed to mimic natural cycles, and waste products were recycled into the ecosystem. This shift not only improved efficiency but also deepened the initiative's commitment to ethical stewardship. Meanwhile, the broader scientific community debated the implications of such a bioengineered material. Some hailed it as a paradigm shift toward living architecture, others warned of unforeseen ecological risks if the enzymes spread beyond controlled environments. Emily engaged in these debates openly, advocating transparency and rigorous environmental monitoring. One high-profile conference became a turning point when Emily presented long-term data demonstrating Superwood's safety and benefits. Her candidness and evidence swayed many skeptics, and the initiative gained new allies among environmentalists and policymakers. At the same time, Elon Musk's vision expanded to include Superwood as a key component in next-generation energy storage and solar panel frames. This convergence of renewable energy and biomaterials promised to accelerate the green revolution but demanded unprecedented interdisciplinary collaboration. Emily found herself bridging gaps between biologists, engineers, and energy experts, navigating competing priorities and languages of different fields. Despite the complexity, the challenge invigorated her, fueling creativity and innovation. However, the relentless pace and high stakes began to exact a personal cost. Emily struggled with anxiety and exhaustion, grappling with moments of self-doubt. She confided in her mentor, who reminded her that leadership meant embracing vulnerability and asking for help. Taking this to heart, Emily began delegating more and investing in team wellness initiatives, recognizing that the initiative's success depended on people as much as technology. As the initiative matured, it fostered a culture of inclusivity and shared purpose, attracting diverse talents driven by a common vision of a sustainable future. Emily often reflected on how far they had come, from a fledgling lab experiment to a global movement reshaping materials science and community resilience. In quiet moments, she thought about her mother's handwritten notes, feeling a deep connection across generations. The story of Superwood was still unfolding, but one truth remained clear: innovation grounded in respect for nature and humanity could change the world. Emily's journey taught her that the future wasn't just about what we build, it was about how we build it, together. The momentum of the Superwood initiative had reached a pivotal moment when Emily was invited to present the technology at the World Economic Forum in Davos, a stage known for shaping global policy and business priorities. Standing among the world's most influential leaders, she felt the weight of responsibility to articulate not just the science but the social promise behind this living material. Her speech wove together stories from flood victims in Oklahoma, Arctic villagers in Norway, and Martian astronauts, each example a testament to Superwood's transformative power. Emily emphasized that Superwood was more than a product, it was a catalyst for equitable, resilient communities worldwide. The response was electric, sparking conversations and commitments to integrate bioengineered materials into infrastructure plans across continents. Yet, the spotlight also brought scrutiny. Questions arose about the initiative's governance, intellectual property, and the risks of monopolizing a technology with such global impact. Emily navigated these concerns with transparency, advocating for open-source collaborations and partnerships that prioritized public benefit over profit. Behind the scenes, tensions simmered within the initiative's leadership as differing visions for Superwood's future clashed. Elon Musk pushed aggressively for commercial expansion, eyeing lucrative sectors like aerospace and automotive. Meanwhile, Emily championed community-centered projects and environmental stewardship. These differences led to intense discussions, sometimes heated, forcing both to confront the challenge of balancing innovation with ethics. Amidst this turmoil, a breakthrough in enzyme technology emerged. A new strain allowed Superwood to self-repair at unprecedented speeds, mimicking living organisms' ability to heal wounds. This advancement promised longer-lasting structures and drastically reduced maintenance costs, revolutionizing industries from construction to transportation. Emily spearheaded the deployment of this technology in pilot projects globally, carefully monitoring outcomes and refining protocols. The success of these trials bolstered confidence but also attracted new competitors eager to develop rival biomaterials. Intellectual property battles ensued, raising questions about regulation and the ethics of bioengineering. Emily advocated for international frameworks that would safeguard safety, accessibility, and innovation. Personal challenges paralleled professional ones. The relentless pace and complex negotiations strained Emily's relationships, particularly with Ben, who struggled to reconcile her public life with their private world. A moment of reckoning arrived when Emily missed a significant anniversary, prompting heartfelt conversations about priorities and balance. She vowed to carve out space for connection amidst the whirlwind. As the initiative scaled new heights, Emily found renewed purpose in mentoring young scientists and activists passionate about sustainability and social justice. She saw in them the future torchbearers of a movement that transcended technology. Reflecting on her journey, Emily understood that Superwood's story was as much about human resilience and collaboration as it was about materials science. The challenges ahead remained daunting, but the foundation had been laid for a future where humanity could build not just stronger structures, but stronger communities and hope. Hit subscribe and leave a comment with where you're watching from. This story might just spark a new beginning. What's one thing that always pushes you forward, even when things get tough? The development of Superwood's self-healing capabilities marked a new era, but it also revealed unforeseen complexities. The enzyme strains responsible for regeneration were delicate and required precise environmental conditions to function optimally. Slight variations in humidity, temperature, or exposure to pollutants could disrupt the healing process, leading to weak points in the material. Emily and her team embarked on an intense campaign to refine these parameters, conducting experiments in controlled environments that mimicked urban, rural, and extraterrestrial settings. One critical breakthrough came when they discovered that incorporating naturally derived biopolymers alongside the enzymes enhanced resilience under fluctuating conditions. This hybrid approach opened new avenues for customization, allowing Superwood to be tailored for specific climates and uses, from hurricane-prone coastal regions to Mars' harsh atmosphere. However, the quest for perfection demanded patience and meticulous testing, often pushing the team to their limits. During one marathon session, Emily observed a young technician collapse from exhaustion, a stark reminder of the human cost behind scientific progress. She made it a priority to advocate for better work-life balance and mental health resources within the initiative, recognizing that sustainable innovation required sustainable people. Meanwhile, the commercial applications of Superwood began to multiply rapidly. Luxury architects incorporated it into cutting-edge designs that blended aesthetics with eco-consciousness, while automotive companies experimented with its lightweight strength to improve vehicle efficiency. Emily found herself navigating a complex web of partnerships, each with competing interests and ethical considerations. Some clients pushed for faster production and fewer environmental safeguards, forcing difficult decisions about where to draw the line. Public opinion fluctuated as well. While many embraced Superwood as a miracle material, others remained skeptical, worried about playing God with nature. To address these concerns, the initiative launched a global transparency portal, sharing real-time data about Superwood production, impact assessments, and community feedback. This openness helped rebuild trust and fostered a collaborative spirit among users and scientists alike. On a more personal front, Emily experienced moments of profound reflection. A visit to her childhood home, now rebuilt with Superwood after years of neglect, stirred memories of loss, hope, and resilience. Walking through rooms filled with natural light and the faint scent of fresh wood, she felt a deep sense of accomplishment tempered by the knowledge that her journey was far from over. In the lab, new challenges loomed. The enzyme's complex interactions with synthetic materials used in electronics and transportation required further study to prevent unintended consequences. Cross-disciplinary teams worked tirelessly to map these biochemical pathways and develop safeguards. Emily often found herself bridging gaps between molecular biology, engineering, and ethics committees, a role that tested both her scientific expertise and diplomatic skills. At the initiative's annual retreat, Elon Musk and Emily shared a rare moment of candid conversation. They acknowledged their differing approaches but reaffirmed a shared vision for humanity's future. Elon's ambition for Mars colonization remained a driving force, while Emily's focus on Earth's vulnerable communities grounded their work in compassion. Their dynamic, though sometimes fraught, underscored the complexity of pioneering change on a global scale. As the chapter closed, Emily stood at the precipice of a new frontier, one where biology and technology fused in unprecedented ways. The promise of Superwood was immense, but so were the responsibilities. With renewed determination, she embraced the challenge ahead, knowing that the future of sustainable innovation depended not only on breakthroughs but on the values guiding them. The year brought an unprecedented opportunity when the Superwood initiative was invited to collaborate on rebuilding the devastated coastal town of Cedar Bay, ravaged by a historic hurricane season. The project was unlike anything Emily had encountered, combining emergency relief, sustainable redevelopment, and community empowerment all under one ambitious roof. Emily traveled to Cedar Bay ahead of the rebuilding efforts to meet residents and understand their hopes and fears. She was struck by their resilience despite immense loss, their homes, businesses, and history wiped out in a matter of hours. Superwood promised a way to rebuild stronger and smarter, but Emily knew that technology alone couldn't heal wounds or restore a sense of home. She committed to involving the community deeply in every stage, fostering co-design workshops where residents shaped how their rebuilt town would look and function. The sessions revealed powerful stories and perspectives, sometimes conflicting, but always rooted in a shared desire for safety and belonging. With input from locals, architects, and engineers, the initiative developed housing prototypes that adapted Superwood's living properties to withstand floods and winds while providing comfort and beauty. Construction began with an energy and urgency rarely seen in post-disaster settings. Watching Superwood panels grow and self-assemble on-site felt like witnessing a living organism rebuild itself, a poetic testament to renewal. But challenges emerged quickly. Supply chain disruptions, regulatory hurdles, and weather delays tested the team's resolve. At times, tension between speed and quality threatened progress, echoing past conflicts Emily had faced on larger projects. The community's patience was equally tested, especially when unforeseen issues caused temporary setbacks. Emily made it a priority to communicate openly, holding town halls and maintaining transparency to build trust and resilience. A breakthrough came when a local high school partnered with the initiative to create an educational program focused on sustainable building and bioengineering. Students engaged with the technology hands-on, igniting excitement and hope for the future. Emily saw in their faces the embodiment of the next generation, ready to inherit and advance the mission. Elon Musk visited Cedar Bay to witness the progress firsthand. His presence energized the team and community, but also underscored the stark contrast between his grand visions and the intimate, human-centered work unfolding on the ground. Their discussions sparked new ideas about integrating renewable energy, transportation, and habitat design holistically. As the first rebuilt homes were completed, families began returning, filling the streets with life and laughter. Emily felt a profound sense of accomplishment, tempered by the knowledge that recovery was ongoing and fragile. The project was more than a rebuilding effort. It was a blueprint for resilience and hope. Reflecting on Cedar Bay, Emily understood that the future of Superwood depended not just on innovation but on humility, collaboration, and an unwavering commitment to the people it served. The material might be stronger than steel, but the true strength lay in human connection and shared purpose. The success of Cedar Bay's reconstruction catapulted the Superwood initiative into the global spotlight, attracting unprecedented interest from governments and industries eager to leverage this new technology for disaster resilience and sustainable development. Emily found herself at the nexus of opportunities and obligations, navigating a rapidly expanding network of stakeholders, each with unique priorities and expectations. One of the most ambitious proposals came from the United Nations, which sought to deploy Superwood in rebuilding efforts across climate-vulnerable regions in Southeast Asia. The scale was daunting, millions of people affected by typhoons, floods, and rising seas. The initiative's challenge was not just technical but deeply human: how to implement cutting-edge bioengineering in diverse cultural contexts while honoring local traditions and needs. Emily led a multidisciplinary team on a fact-finding mission to Vietnam and the Philippines, immersing themselves in communities where the future depended on resilient housing and infrastructure. The experience was both inspiring and sobering. She witnessed firsthand the profound social and environmental challenges facing these regions, from economic disparities to bureaucratic obstacles. Yet amid adversity, she also saw extraordinary innovation and community spirit. This reinforced her belief that technology must serve people, not the other way around. The team adapted Superwood production methods to utilize locally sourced materials and enzymes, reducing costs and empowering regional economies. Workshops trained local artisans and engineers in maintenance and customization, fostering ownership and sustainability. However, political complexities and logistical hurdles sometimes slowed progress. Emily learned to balance optimism with realism, celebrating small victories while confronting systemic barriers. Back home, the initiative expanded research into combining superwood with renewable energy solutions, such as solar-embedded panels and biobatteries. These hybrid technologies promised self-sufficient homes capable of withstanding climate extremes while minimizing environmental footprints. Collaborations with energy startups and academic institutions pushed the boundaries of what living materials could achieve. Yet with growth came risks. Cybersecurity concerns emerged as increasingly connected systems raised fears of sabotage or malfunction. Emily prioritized building robust safeguards and transparent protocols, often mediating between engineers, policymakers, and ethicists. On a personal level, the intensity of global operations deepened Emily's resolve but strained her health and relationships. She confronted burnout and the pressure of public scrutiny, learning to delegate and lean on trusted colleagues. A heartfelt conversation with Ben reignited their partnership, reminding her that leadership included vulnerability and balance. Meanwhile, Elon Musk's visionary pursuits took new forms, advancing Starship missions and sustainable energy projects that complemented Superwood's ecosystem. Their collaboration remained dynamic, marked by mutual challenge and respect. As the initiative prepared to scale Superwood production globally, Emily reflected on the journey's profound lessons. That innovation flourished where science met empathy, where progress was measured not just in breakthroughs but in lives transformed. The future was uncertain, but the seeds planted through Superwood promised a world stronger, smarter, and more connected than ever before. The expansion into Southeast Asia brought new dimensions to the Superwood initiative, revealing the complexities of scaling a revolutionary material across diverse landscapes and societies. Emily and her team encountered a mosaic of challenges, from navigating local governance structures to addressing cultural differences in construction practices. In rural Vietnam, Superwood homes needed to accommodate monsoon seasons, high humidity, and the community's preference for traditional open-air designs. Rather than imposing a one-size-fits-all solution, Emily championed an adaptive approach, collaborating closely with local architects and elders to integrate Superwood's living properties into familiar aesthetics and functionality. This co-creation process not only enhanced acceptance but also sparked innovations blending tradition with technology. In the Philippines, the team worked alongside fisherfolk communities vulnerable to typhoons and rising sea levels. Here, Superwood's buoyancy and flexibility offered hope for flood-resistant housing. Community workshops empowered residents to participate in construction, fostering a sense of ownership and resilience. These hands-on experiences were transformative for Emily, reminding her that technology's greatest power lay in enabling human agency. However, the project's scale and urgency also meant confronting bureaucratic inertia and corruption in some regions. Emily learned to navigate these political waters with patience and diplomacy, building alliances with local NGOs and activists committed to transparency and equity. Meanwhile, back in the initiative's headquarters, research into the bioengineering of Superwood advanced on multiple fronts. New enzyme variants capable of adapting to extreme environments were under development, including strains designed to resist pests and microbial decay without harmful chemicals. The goal was to create materials that were not only strong and sustainable but truly alive, responsive to their surroundings in ways no synthetic material could match. These scientific breakthroughs opened exciting possibilities but also ethical debates. The initiative established an independent bioethics council to oversee developments, ensuring that innovations aligned with principles of safety, environmental stewardship, and social justice. Emily took an active role, advocating for transparency and community engagement in decision-making processes. At the same time, Elon Musk's ambitions for Mars colonization incorporated Superwood into habitat design plans, envisioning structures that could grow and self-repair in the Martian environment. This partnership fueled cross-planetary research, pushing the boundaries of bioengineering and materials science. Emily found herself balancing Earth-centric sustainability with the futuristic demands of space exploration, a testament to Superwood's versatility and potential. Despite the technological advances, the human element remained central to Emily's vision. She invested time mentoring young scientists and community leaders, fostering a generation poised to carry forward the initiative's mission with empathy and innovation. Personal challenges persisted, including the ongoing effort to maintain work-life balance and nurture meaningful relationships. Through these struggles, Emily discovered resilience not only in Superwood but within herself. As the chapter closed, Emily reflected on the journey's evolving narrative, one defined by collaboration across cultures, disciplines, and planets. The future was uncertain, but with every challenge came new hope. Superwood was more than a material, it was a symbol of humanity's capacity to grow, adapt, and build a better world together. As the Superwood initiative gained momentum, Emily faced a new frontier, public perception and media scrutiny. The narrative around bioengineered materials was often polarized, swinging between awe at innovation and fear of unnatural interference with life. A high-profile investigative documentary aired, questioning the environmental impact and long-term safety of Superwood. The report, while raising valid concerns, also fueled misinformation and anxiety among the public. Emily recognized the critical need to engage honestly and proactively with the media, scientists, and communities to rebuild trust. She spearheaded a comprehensive outreach campaign, including town halls, educational programs, and transparent data sharing. The initiative invited independent experts to audit their processes and publish findings openly. These efforts gradually shifted the conversation, highlighting Superwood's potential for positive change while acknowledging and addressing legitimate risks. Simultaneously, the initiative navigated the complex regulatory landscapes of multiple countries. Governments grappled with how to classify and oversee a living, self-repairing material that defied traditional categories. Emily worked closely with policymakers, providing scientific expertise and advocating for frameworks that balanced innovation with safety and accessibility. This process was often slow and frustrating, revealing the tension between rapid technological advancement and regulatory caution. In the lab, research pushed forward on integrating Superwood with smart technologies, embedding sensors and data systems within the material to monitor structural integrity, environmental conditions, and even energy usage. These living buildings promised unprecedented levels of efficiency and responsiveness, heralding a new era in architecture and urban planning. However, this convergence of biology and technology also raised ethical questions about privacy, data security, and autonomy. Emily ensured these issues were front and center in development discussions, reinforcing the initiative's commitment to responsible innovation. On the personal front, Emily's relationship with Ben deepened as they navigated the pressures of public life and professional demands. Moments of vulnerability and support strengthened their bond, providing a grounding force amid the whirlwind. Emily also found solace in reconnecting with nature, hiking, gardening, and reflecting on the interconnectedness of all living systems, a philosophy that underpinned her work. Elon Musk continued to push bold projects, but he also showed increasing respect for Emily's holistic approach. Their partnership evolved from tension to synergy, blending visionary ambition with grounded stewardship. As the chapter drew to a close, Emily felt a renewed sense of purpose. The path ahead was complex and uncertain, but the foundations laid by Superwood science, ethics, and community engagement offered hope. This was not just a story of material innovation, but of humanity's evolving relationship with the living world, a story still being written with every challenge and breakthrough. Amid growing global attention, the Superwood initiative faced a critical turning point when an unexpected natural disaster struck the Pacific Northwest. A massive earthquake followed by aftershocks that devastated parts of Seattle and Portland. Emergency response teams struggled with damaged infrastructure, impassable roads, and overwhelmed hospitals. Emily saw an urgent opportunity to deploy Superwood in disaster relief and rebuilding efforts, putting the material's resilience and self-healing properties to a critical test. Coordinating with local authorities and NGOs, the initiative mobilized rapidly, sending modular Superwood shelters that could be assembled quickly and adapted to diverse terrains and needs. These shelters provided safe, durable refuge for displaced families while permanent reconstruction plans took shape. Emily accompanied the relief teams, witnessing firsthand the material's impact and the community's response. Many survivors expressed hope and gratitude, seeing Superwood homes as symbols of renewal and possibility. However, the scale and speed of deployment revealed logistical challenges. Supply chains strained to meet demand, and manufacturing facilities operated around the clock. Emily and her team worked tirelessly to optimize production, balancing speed with quality control. The disaster also spotlighted the need for coordinated global preparedness, inspiring international collaboration on bioengineered materials for emergency response. While the immediate crisis tested Superwood's practical capabilities, it also deepened Emily's understanding of the human dimension of resilience, the interplay of technology, community, and emotional strength. The experience prompted new initiatives focused on mental health support and community rebuilding alongside physical infrastructure. Elon Musk's interest in disaster response intensified, integrating Superwood shelters into SpaceX's contingency planning for off-world colonization scenarios. This synergy reinforced the material's versatility and strategic importance. Back at the initiative, research accelerated into next-generation Superwood variants capable of withstanding seismic shocks and rapid environmental changes. Innovations included dynamic structural adaptations inspired by natural organisms' responses to stress. These advancements promised to redefine engineering standards globally. Amidst the pressures and breakthroughs, Emily took time to reflect on her personal journey. The earthquake relief work rekindled her sense of purpose, reminding her why she embarked on this path, to build a future where technology empowers humanity to overcome adversity with dignity and hope. Her resilience, like Superwood itself, had grown stronger through trials and collaboration. As the chapter concluded, Emily looked toward the horizon, aware that challenges would continue, but confident that with innovation, empathy, and determination, the future was within reach, one living structure at a time. Following the earthquake relief efforts, the Superwood initiative was poised for its most ambitious project yet, designing and constructing the first fully sustainable, self-regenerating urban neighborhood in the heart of a major American city. Emily and her team were tasked with transforming a neglected district in Detroit, a city emblematic of industrial decline and urban renewal. The project aimed not only to rebuild structures but to foster a living ecosystem integrating housing, commerce, green spaces, and renewable energy, all woven together by Superwood's unique properties. The challenge was monumental. Detroit's urban fabric was dense and complex, with layers of history, economic hardship, and community pride. Emily knew that success required more than cutting-edge materials. It demanded genuine collaboration with residents, local leaders, and urban planners to co-create a vision reflecting the city's spirit and aspirations. Early community meetings were raw and honest. Residents expressed skepticism born from decades of broken promises and neglect. Many questioned whether a high-tech project like Superwood could address their immediate needs, jobs, safety, education, while preserving their cultural identity. Emily listened intently, determined to build trust through transparency and respect. The initiative launched workforce development programs, training local residents in Superwood construction techniques and bioengineering basics. These efforts generated employment and fostered ownership of the transformation process. Schools partnered with the project to integrate STEM education with real-world applications, inspiring youth with tangible futures. Design workshops invited input on housing styles, public spaces, and amenities, ensuring the neighborhood would feel lived in and loved, not alien or imposed. Architecturally, the team experimented with Superwood's adaptive capabilities, walls that could breathe and regulate temperature, streets that absorbed stormwater, and facades that healed after damage. Renewable energy systems embedded in Superwood structures powered homes and businesses, minimizing carbon footprints. The neighborhood became a living laboratory, showcasing how biology and technology could redefine urban life sustainably and beautifully. Challenges abounded. Balancing innovation with affordability required creative financing and partnerships. Regulatory approvals moved slowly, complicated by Detroit's legacy infrastructure and zoning laws. Weather events tested the material's resilience, revealing areas for improvement. Emily's leadership was tested repeatedly, managing expectations, mediating conflicts, and motivating a diverse team toward a common goal. Throughout, she remained grounded by the stories and faces of residents whose lives would be transformed. Elon Musk's involvement added visibility and resources but also heightened scrutiny. Public debates about gentrification and equity emerged, forcing Emily to confront the broader social implications of technological progress. She advocated fiercely for inclusive development policies, ensuring that benefits reached all community members, not just investors or newcomers. As construction progressed, the neighborhood began to take shape, blending innovation with tradition in unexpected harmony. Families moved into Superwood homes, businesses reopened, and parks flourished with native plants nurtured by living materials. Community events celebrated milestones, reinforcing connections among residents and with the initiative team. Emily found personal fulfillment in these moments, seeing the tangible impact of years of effort and collaboration. The project attracted international attention, inspiring similar initiatives worldwide and advancing discourse on sustainable urbanism. Emily reflected on how Superwood had evolved from a material concept to a catalyst for social and environmental transformation. Yet she remained mindful of the ongoing journey, acknowledging imperfections and committing to continuous learning and adaptation. As the chapter closed, Emily stood on a rooftop overlooking the neighborhood, the city skyline framed by sunset hues. The hum of life below was a testament to resilience and possibility. Superwood was not just stronger than steel, it was stronger because it was alive, responsive, and intertwined with human hope. The future was being built here. One regenerative structure, one empowered community, one shared dream at a time. With the Detroit neighborhood thriving, Emily and the Superwood initiative turned their gaze toward a new frontier, transportation infrastructure. The vision was to design bridges and highways using Superwood, creating roads that could self-repair cracks, adjust to temperature changes, and reduce environmental impact. The idea sparked excitement and skepticism alike. Transportation departments across the country faced aging infrastructure, costly maintenance, and increasing climate stresses. Could a living material like Superwood truly revolutionize this domain? Emily assembled a specialized team of civil engineers, bioengineers, and environmental scientists to develop pilot projects. Their first focus was a pedestrian bridge in a small town in Oregon, chosen for its variable weather and community engagement. The bridge would serve not just as a physical crossing but as a symbol of sustainable innovation. The design incorporated Superwood's ability to flex under load and heal after damage, embedded sensors to monitor structural health, and solar microcells powering lights and information displays. Construction presented unprecedented challenges. Building living infrastructure required rethinking standard practices, coordinating between bioengineers and construction crews unfamiliar with dynamic materials. Scheduling delays and unforeseen technical issues tested patience and adaptability. Emily frequently visited the site, engaging with workers and residents, emphasizing the project's broader significance. Public interest grew as the bridge neared completion. Locals marveled at the sleek, organic aesthetics and functionality, eager to see how it would perform over time. Environmental impact assessments showed promising results: reduced carbon emissions during construction, minimal habitat disruption, and improved stormwater management. The bridge's self-repair mechanisms began activating during a series of minor weather-related damages, demonstrating Superwood's remarkable resilience. Inspired by this success, state transportation officials expressed interest in scaling Superwood use to highways and railways. The initiative began collaborating on research to develop large-scale Superwood panels capable of supporting heavy loads and integrating with existing infrastructure. These efforts required innovations in fabrication, transport, and installation logistics. Meanwhile, public debates surfaced over safety standards, long-term durability, and costs. Emily worked closely with regulators and independent experts to establish testing protocols and certification processes. Transparency and rigorous science were key to overcoming skepticism. The initiative also explored the potential of Superwood in electric vehicle infrastructure, charging stations, road surfaces embedded with energy harvesting capabilities, and smart traffic systems communicating with autonomous vehicles. Elon Musk's companies showed keen interest in integrating Superwood elements, blending transportation innovation with living architecture. As these projects developed, Emily balanced ambition with caution, recognizing that transforming infrastructure was a long-term endeavor requiring patience, collaboration, and continual learning. On a personal note, she found renewed inspiration in mentoring young engineers, emphasizing ethical responsibility and community-centered design. The chapter closed with the bridge's official opening ceremony, where residents, officials, and scientists gathered to celebrate a milestone in sustainable infrastructure. Emily reflected on how far Superwood had come. From a lab-born idea to a living material shaping the future of how people connect, move, and build together. The road ahead was challenging but filled with promise, one self-healing structure at a time. The momentum behind Superwood's transportation applications propelled Emily and her team toward a bold new endeavor, integrating the material into aerospace technology. The idea was ambitious: to develop lightweight, self-repairing components for aircraft and spacecraft that could reduce weight, increase durability, and enhance safety. Collaborations with aerospace engineers and NASA scientists opened unprecedented opportunities for cross-disciplinary innovation. Emily's office buzzed with activity as her team tackled the challenges of adapting a living material to the extreme conditions of flight, rapid temperature fluctuations, high stress, radiation exposure, and the vacuum of space. Early prototypes focused on small components like interior panels and protective coatings, where Superwood's adaptability and self-healing properties could extend maintenance cycles and improve passenger safety. Testing in simulated environments revealed surprising results. Superwood adapted dynamically to microfractures and impacts, reducing the need for repairs and inspections. Encouraged, the initiative pushed forward with larger structural elements, including wing supports and fuselage sections. These advancements required re-engineering biocomposites for strength without compromising weight, as well as developing bioshields to protect the living material from cosmic radiation. The research attracted attention from Elon Musk's aerospace ventures, with discussions about incorporating Superwood into Starship designs for Mars missions. The material's potential to grow and repair in situ promised revolutionary possibilities for off-world habitats and vehicles. Emily often collaborated with Musk and his engineers in intense design sessions, blending visionary ambition with practical science. Despite rapid progress, skepticism persisted within the aerospace community. Concerns about long-term material stability, regulatory approval, and integration with existing manufacturing processes required meticulous validation. Emily championed rigorous testing standards, open data sharing, and ongoing dialogue with industry leaders and regulators to build trust. Public fascination grew as documentaries and articles highlighted Superwood's role in shaping future flight. The material's organic aesthetics and eco-friendly credentials captivated audiences, inspiring a new generation of engineers and scientists. Meanwhile, Emily grappled with the personal implications of this rapidly expanding influence. The demands of leadership, public engagement, and innovation often left little room for rest or reflection. Support from her partner Ben and close colleagues became essential anchors in the whirlwind. Their shared commitment to balancing ambition with well-being underscored the human dimension behind technological breakthroughs. As the chapter concluded, a landmark test flight featuring Superwood components marked a historic milestone. The aircraft's successful operation validated years of research and collaboration, signaling a new era in aerospace engineering. Emily stood at the forefront of this revolution, humbled by the journey and inspired by the possibilities ahead. Superwood was not just a material, it was a bridge between biology and technology, Earth and space, dreams and reality. The future was alive, growing stronger with every innovation. With the aerospace breakthrough behind them, Emily and the Superwood initiative faced their next challenge, tackling global climate change through large-scale environmental restoration projects. The material's ability to grow, adapt, and integrate into ecosystems made it an ideal candidate for reforestation, shoreline stabilization, and habitat reconstruction. Emily envisioned Superwood not just as a building material, but as a tool for healing the planet. Collaborations with ecologists, climate scientists, and conservationists launched pilot programs in areas devastated by deforestation and erosion. In the Amazon basin, Superwood scaffold supported the growth of native flora, accelerating forest regeneration while providing habitats for wildlife. Along coastlines vulnerable to rising sea levels, Superwood barriers absorbed wave energy and rebuilt dunes, protecting communities from flooding without disrupting natural processes. These projects demanded a delicate balance, ensuring the living material complemented, rather than supplanted, native species and ecosystems. Emily emphasized careful monitoring, adaptive management, and community involvement to maintain ecological integrity. The work was grueling and complex, with unpredictable environmental variables and social dynamics. Yet, each success, new saplings thriving on Superwood frameworks, restored wetlands teeming with life, reinforced the initiative's purpose. These restoration efforts also became powerful symbols of hope and regeneration for communities affected by climate disasters. Public engagement campaigns highlighted personal stories of resilience and renewal, connecting technological innovation with human and ecological well-being. Funding and support grew, drawing interest from governments, NGOs, and private sector partners committed to sustainability. Elon Musk's vision for a sustainable future aligned closely with these environmental missions. His support facilitated ambitious projects integrating Superwood with renewable energy systems, carbon capture technologies, and sustainable agriculture, creating holistic solutions addressing multiple dimensions of climate change. However, challenges remained. Critics questioned the scalability and ecological impact of introducing engineered living materials into sensitive environments. Ethical debates around bioengineering intensified, requiring transparent governance and inclusive dialogue. Emily and the initiative responded with open forums, published research, and partnerships with indigenous and local communities, respecting traditional knowledge and rights. The chapter's emotional core lay in Emily's personal growth, her evolving understanding of humanity's interconnectedness with nature and technology. She reflected on the lessons learned from past hardships, the importance of humility, and the power of collaborative action. These experiences deepened her resolve to pursue innovation not as domination over nature but as harmonious coexistence. As the chapter closed, the Superwood initiative unveiled a landmark environmental restoration project, a vast coastal forest reborn through living architecture and community stewardship. The event drew diverse stakeholders, united by a shared vision of a healthier planet. Emily stood among them, feeling the weight and promise of their collective journey. Superwood had transcended its origins as a material, it had become a beacon of hope for the future of Earth and humanity alike. As the Superwood initiative's environmental restoration projects flourished, Emily found herself reflecting on the broader implications of their work, not only for the planet but for society's relationship with technology and progress. The journey had been marked by incredible breakthroughs, daunting setbacks, and profound personal growth. She recognized that Superwood represented more than a scientific marvel, it symbolized a new philosophy, one of balance, resilience, and responsibility. Public interest in Superwood had grown into a global movement, inspiring artists, educators, policymakers, and everyday people to rethink their connection with the natural world. Emily participated in international forums and conferences, advocating for ethical innovation that prioritized community empowerment and ecological stewardship. The initiative's approach challenged conventional paradigms of industrial growth, emphasizing collaboration with living systems rather than extraction or domination. This shift provoked both excitement and resistance. Some critics feared the loss of traditional industries and economic disruption, while others worried about unintended consequences of living technologies. Emily met these challenges head-on, fostering transparent dialogue and evidence-based policymaking. Internally, the initiative expanded its focus to include social justice and equity, recognizing that sustainable futures required addressing systemic inequalities. Programs supporting marginalized communities, inclusive design principles, and equitable access to Superwood technologies became integral to their mission. Amid these complex dynamics, Emily experienced moments of doubt and exhaustion, questioning whether the scale of change required was achievable. Yet, she drew strength from the initiative's diverse team, community partners, and the resilience she had cultivated through personal and professional trials. Elon Musk's continued involvement evolved into a partnership grounded in mutual respect and shared vision. His relentless drive complemented Emily's thoughtful leadership, enabling bold strides forward without sacrificing ethical grounding. Together, they explored new frontiers, integrating Superwood with AI systems for adaptive urban management, developing global networks of living materials for climate resilience, and envisioning interplanetary applications that bridged Earth and space exploration. The chapter's emotional heart centered on Emily's personal journey. Through reflection, she embraced imperfection and uncertainty as essential elements of progress. She nurtured relationships with friends, family, and Ben, finding balance and joy beyond work. The story conveyed a message of hope grounded in human connection, creativity, and stewardship. As the chapter drew to a close, Emily stood before a gathering of young innovators and activists, sharing the lessons of the Superwood initiative. She urged them to imagine futures where technology and nature thrive together, guided by ethics and empathy. The room pulsed with energy and possibility, testament to the living legacy of Superwood and the enduring power of visionary courage. The culmination of years of relentless innovation, struggle, and hope, the final chapter of Emily's journey with Superwood brought profound reflection and resolution. The world was no longer the same. Cities had grown greener, infrastructure more resilient, and communities more connected through living materials that responded to human needs and the environment's rhythms. Emily stood on a stage at the International Summit on Sustainable Futures, the largest gathering yet of scientists, policymakers, activists, and dreamers united by a common vision. As she looked out at the sea of faces, many inspired by the Superwood initiative, she felt the weight of their shared journey, the victories, setbacks, sacrifices, and breakthroughs that had shaped not only a revolutionary material but a new way of living. Her speech wove together the lessons learned, the necessity of humility before nature, the importance of inclusive collaboration, and the power of persistence in the face of uncertainty. She emphasized that progress was never linear, it was a dance of trial and error, hope and hardship. The crowd hung on her every word, sensing the authenticity born of lived experience. Behind the scenes, Emily's thoughts drifted to the people who had shaped her path, her family's support during early struggles, Ben's unwavering partnership, the brilliant minds who pushed boundaries alongside her, and the communities who embraced change despite fear and skepticism. Each had taught her invaluable lessons about resilience, empathy, and the courage to dream beyond convention. The initiative's success had not erased challenges. Climate change, inequality, and technological ethics remained urgent concerns. But Superwood had become a symbol of possibility, proof that humanity could harness innovation to heal and uplift. Elon Musk's presence at the summit underscored the partnership's impact. His visionary drive and Emily's grounded leadership had complemented one another, forging a dynamic synergy that propelled the material from concept to global influence. Together, they announced the next phase, expanding Superwood's reach beyond Earth, into space habitats designed for Mars colonization, where the material's self-repair and adaptability would be vital. The future was literally cosmic. As the summit closed, Emily walked through a gallery showcasing projects built with Superwood, from urban parks regenerating biodiversity, to disaster-resilient shelters, to living bridges and spacecraft components. Each piece told a story of innovation meeting human need, of technology harmonizing with nature. She felt a profound sense of fulfillment tempered by the recognition that the journey was ongoing. Life, like Superwood, was a living system, growing, evolving, sometimes breaking but always healing. The final punchline came as she reflected on the question that had opened her story: what if you suddenly lost everything and had no one by your side? For Emily, the answer was clear. Loss and adversity were inevitable, but through connection, creativity, and courage, a new beginning was always possible. Superwood had taught her that strength was not just about endurance but about adaptability and renewal. As she left the summit, Emily knew the story of Superwood, and humanity, was far from over. It was a story still being written, one living chapter at a time. After the inspiring conclusion at the International Summit on Sustainable Futures, Emily realized that the story of Superwood was only beginning a new chapter, one that opened limitless possibilities beyond all previous boundaries. She and her research team began focusing on expanding Superwood's applications into healthcare and medical technology, a seemingly distant but deeply transformative idea. Superwood was not just a living material, it had the ability to interact with its environment and even the human body, self-repairing damage, fighting bacteria, and enhancing tissue regeneration. Emily worked closely with biomedical scientists to develop medical devices ranging from supportive bone implants to smart bandages that could accelerate wound healing more effectively. Testing these new applications involved rigorous medical trials and strict safety standards, but the team persevered, always prioritizing safety and efficacy. Meanwhile, they developed biointerfaces enabling the material to communicate with the nervous system or electronic devices, opening potentials in neural rehabilitation and assistive technologies for people with disabilities. Initially cautious, the medical community gradually became convinced by experimental results and compelling patient stories showing remarkable recoveries aided by Superwood-based devices. Emily realized that integrating living materials into medicine was not only a scientific advance but a profound connection between technology and life, between healing and growth. Personal stories of patients who regained health and joy after long struggles became a powerful motivation to push through challenges. The project attracted attention from international healthcare organizations and investors, unlocking new funding and cross-disciplinary collaborations. However, Emily also confronted complex ethical issues. From ensuring biological privacy rights to preventing misuse or discrimination through technology. She championed transparent, multi-stakeholder discussions and engaged in policy forums to build fair and humane regulatory frameworks. Throughout this process, Emily remained mindful of self-care and nurturing her close relationships with Ben and friends, knowing that maintaining balance was crucial to sustaining passion and mental health. Toward the chapter's end, Emily stood in the laboratory where Superwood medical devices were nearing completion, the soft blue glow reflecting off the living surfaces like a beacon of hope and innovation. She reminded herself that the future was not just a journey of technology but a human story, of resilience, love, and faith in limitless healing potential. Superwood had ushered in a new era where science and humanity intertwined, opening doors to miracles once only imagined. Emily's work with Superwood's medical applications had opened new horizons, but her vision extended even further, to creating entire living environments that could adapt, heal, and evolve alongside their human inhabitants. She imagined homes, schools, and workplaces built from Superwood that weren't static structures but dynamic ecosystems, responding to changes in weather, air quality, and human needs. This vision sparked a new phase of research focused on bioarchitecture and smart living spaces. Collaborating with architects, urban planners, and environmental psychologists, Emily's team explored how Superwood could be engineered to regulate temperature naturally, purify air, and even grow furniture and decorative elements organically. The concept of living buildings captivated the public imagination, offering a glimpse of sustainable lifestyles that harmonize technology and nature. Pilot projects included eco-villages and schools where walls adjusted translucency to optimize light, floors absorbed noise, and surfaces self-cleaned to reduce maintenance. These spaces were designed to promote well-being, creativity, and community connection. At the same time, ethical and practical questions arose: how to balance technological control with personal privacy, how to ensure accessibility for all socioeconomic groups, and how to maintain the delicate living systems without overburdening residents. Emily fostered inclusive dialogue with communities and experts to navigate these challenges thoughtfully. Funding came from diverse sources, including government grants aimed at combating urban heat islands and private investors excited by the fusion of design and biotech. Elon Musk, ever the visionary, supported the initiative by exploring integration with renewable energy systems and advanced AI for building management. As the project advanced, Emily noticed a profound cultural shift: people's relationship with their environment was changing. The living spaces encouraged mindfulness and care, inspiring users to engage actively with their surroundings rather than treat them as passive backdrops. This shift brought new social dynamics and raised questions about human connection in an increasingly technological world. Emily herself felt these changes deeply, reflecting on her own journey from skeptical scientist to passionate advocate of living technology. She balanced the exhilaration of innovation with the need for humility and respect for natural processes. The chapter's emotional core centered on Emily's evolving sense of purpose, realizing that true progress was not just about building smarter structures but nurturing communities and ecosystems in tandem. As the chapter closed, the first fully Superwood-built community opened its doors, hailed as a milestone in sustainable living. Emily stood among residents, feeling the energy of a new beginning, a living, breathing testament to human creativity and nature's enduring wisdom. The future was no longer a distant dream but a tangible, growing reality shaped by hands and hearts working together. As the Superwood-built community thrived, Emily and her team confronted new challenges that tested not only the material's capabilities but the very fabric of human society. The living architecture, while revolutionary, revealed unexpected social complexities. Residents experienced heightened emotional connections to their homes, which responded dynamically to their moods and behaviors. This led to profound feelings of comfort and belonging but also raised concerns about dependency and privacy. Some individuals found it difficult to separate their identity from their living environment, blurring boundaries between self and space in ways that psychology was only beginning to understand. Emily initiated collaborations with behavioral scientists and ethicists to study these phenomena, aiming to develop guidelines that balance technological intimacy with personal autonomy. Meanwhile, political debates intensified as governments grappled with regulating living technologies. Questions about ownership: did people own their Superwood homes outright, or did the material's living aspect imply a form of partnership or stewardship, sparked legal and philosophical disputes. Emily found herself navigating a maze of policy discussions, advocating for frameworks that protected individual rights while fostering innovation. Public opinion was divided. While many celebrated the benefits of Superwood's adaptability and sustainability, others feared a future where technology might manipulate human behavior or erode privacy. Emily's leadership was crucial in maintaining transparent communication, organizing public forums and education campaigns to demystify the technology and address fears openly. On a personal level, Emily continued to grow through these trials. Her relationship with Ben deepened, grounded in shared values and mutual support amid the whirlwind of progress and controversy. She also forged new friendships with activists and community leaders who challenged her to think more critically about social justice and equity in technological development. The chapter's emotional climax came when a natural disaster struck the region. A severe storm tested the resilience of the Superwood community. The living structures responded in real time, repairing damage and shielding residents, proving the material's promise in crisis. The event united the community, reaffirming the power of collaboration and innovation. Yet it also underscored the ongoing responsibility to steward technology wisely. As the chapter closed, Emily stood looking out over the recovering neighborhood, hopeful but aware that the journey was far from over. The future of Superwood and humanity was intertwined, a living story written by every choice, challenge, and connection made along the way. Hit subscribe and leave a comment with where you're watching from. This story might just spark a new beginning. What's one thing that always pushes you forward, even when things get tough?